Alp, a very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Mike.
I mean, it's a bit like one of these, I said it's a bit like one of these shops that you open up in the centre of a town and you say, we're selling everything here. If you want yourself to get a Lamborghini, it's only 500 quid, but you've got to come down and give us a deposit of 50 quid. You go down there, give them the deposit, they go back next week, they say, give us another 50 quid, and you just keep going like that, but the Lamborghini never appears. We keep giving the French money for nothing to happen. In fact, it gets worse. More people come here, the more money we give them.
That seems to be exactly what's happening, Mike. What I don't see is why the French refuse to accept that dealing with this problem is just as much in their interests as it is in ours. And I'd like to believe that some of the money that we're handing over is going to be put to some good use. It won't stop people crossing the Channel. It won't stop people making their way into France and heading for Calais. So I can understand why people, including us, feel frustrated with this whole strategy of paying the French to stop them from setting off in the first place. It won't work.
No, of course it won't work. I mean, the one thing that will work is if they actually stop the boats from ever getting into the water. And I've suggested many occasions where you could actually just puncture the boats, you could confiscate the boats, you could easily track the boats. It can't be that difficult to patrol that stretch of beach. We keep hearing from people, oh, it's a very difficult piece of land to patrol. Well, why is it difficult? I don't understand why that's so difficult.
Well, I mean, even if they were to, having intercepted those who are setting off, if they didn't sort of set them free and let them try again the next day or the day after, then I'd say, well, OK, they're at least having some sort of impact. But the problem is that there they are, I don't know, stopping 30, 40,000, they claim. But they don't tell us what happened to those 30 or 40,000 having been intercepted and having been turned back. And that is where the problem lies. The solution really has to be much more fundamental than that. And this is what the bill that was launched, that was announced on Monday, I think that is to be welcomed. There are serious flaws to that bill, unquestionably. They are flaws that could be rectified as it goes through Parliament, but at least there is some willing being shown by both Suella Braverman and, it seems, with backing from Number 10. So that is to be welcomed. It's not the ultimate solution.
No, I think what is to be welcomed is Rishi Sunak has sort of changed the narrative, hasn't he? Instead of being frightened to go anywhere near criticising the migrants, he's actually come right out and said that it's unfair on the people who come here legally. It's unfair on the communities that are having to put these people up in hotels in their own communities. It's unfair on the towns and villages of Kent and Sussex where these people are landing and sometimes living rough, because that's what's happening, by the way. I'm sure you know this in parts of Kent and Sussex. Some of the migrants who don't get picked up are simply living in the woods in tents. I mean, it's unbelievable what's going on. It's unfair on our pensioners. It's unfair on our homeless people. It's unfair on our veterans, the people who are suffering in this country, to see people coming here illegally, getting money, being given cards to spend money on, being allowed to walk freely around, not being watched seemingly by anyone. And also, we've heard an awful lot this week of people saying one of the reasons they like coming here is that they can disappear into the black economy and never be seen again.
Yeah, I agree with all that, Mike. It's good that Rishi Sunak, Suella Braverman even, have now gone along with the sort of things that we've been pointing out and agree that it is unfair. And we've been saying it for how long? The last 3 years?
I was saying, actually, funnily enough, to Jeremy Kyle this morning, somebody sent me an interview I did with Stephen Doughty, who's a Labour MP from Wales, and we were arguing backwards and forwards about Brexit, whether there should be a second referendum. And I actually brought up migrants arriving on the shores of boats illegally in this country, and it was 4 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, It all started really in October 2018, and that was when Sajid Javid was Home Secretary, and he declared an emergency and he was going to deal with it, and really substantially did nothing.
Yeah.
Then it was Priti Patel who had a go, and I think her heart was in the right place, but clearly totally incapable of dealing with the issue or putting in place the necessary legislation.
Well, she, it seems to me, was stymied by the Home Office and by the civil servants in that Home Office, who are blatantly on the side of allowing as many people to come into this country as possible.
Well, to a certain extent, although as a former Home Office official, I would say that ultimately it's got to be ministers that take the blame for anything that happens. That's the way our system works.
Yeah.
And I won't have it, frankly, that civil servants are entirely to blame. I know that the officials working at the border, they work bloody hard. Sorry, excuse me.
That's all right. That's perfectly allowable and accepted. The independent republic does not have zero tolerance of these things.
It's a bit early in the day. My kids have never heard me swear. No, the fact is that the whole mess really has been building up. This bill is really an opportunity now, actually, to get a grip. If they miss this opportunity, and if the bill that eventually becomes an act is inadequate in the way that the Nationality and Borders Act or the Immigration and Borders Act was last year, then I'm afraid they'll be held to pay come the next elections.
Yes.
And that is, I suppose, why Rishi Sunak and Suella Braverman are now coming round to our way of thinking. But, and this is a big but, we're not there yet, because this bill, as I say, has serious flaws, and they've got to sort those out as the bill progresses through Parliament. And they can do that. The government has the majority in Parliament that allows them to do that. And the House of Lords, which is going to be absolutely against it, they will try and destroy this bill. They can only hold things up. In the end, if the government means business, then I'm afraid they've got to make sure that the act that eventually reaches the statute book is one designed to achieve the task of stopping the boats and stopping illegal immigration generally.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be root and branch, hasn't it? They've got to go after the lefty lawyers, as Rishi Sunak is so careful to point out that Keir Starmer, he numbers amongst them. And they're going to have to, I think, eventually stop the legal aid gravy train. They're going to have to say, look, if you come to this country illegally as a migrant and you are refused asylum, you know, I don't mind them maybe even having legal aid to make the first application if that's required, although many would say that's not required either. But certainly once you've been denied asylum once, then you don't get legal aid to appeal. You shouldn't get that. Once you're down, you're out. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I agree, Mike. Certainly legal aid, I mean, the way the law is framed now, there's no alternative to giving legal aid. Maybe that's something that they could look at as this bill.
Well, there is an alternative.
Goes through Parliament.
They give them sweet FA. There's the alternative. Nothing. Thank you. That's it. Well, you know, I mean, the trouble is we are a soft touch, Alp. The only way we're going to fix this is to stop being a soft touch. Everyone in France knows it. The French say people come here because we give people a good time. They don't put them up in hotels in France. They're sleeping on the streets.
Well, yeah, we are seen as a soft touch, but also our laws and our controls are seen not as a soft touch, they're seen as being wide open. What the smugglers and traffickers do is effectively stick two fingers up at Britain, really, and that's when they believe that they can capitalise on our softness and our stupidity sometimes in allowing to happen what has been going on for years now.
Yeah, and they're going to continue to milk the system as long as it's milkable, you know. But you have to cut all that off. You have to make it more difficult for them to gain access to all of the free stuff that they can get here, and then they won't come.
Absolutely, and that's why, really, when we talk about lefty lawyers, yes, there are lefty lawyers, and there are a lot of lawyers who do very well out of the whole system. But what we also need to do is close the loopholes that they exploit with alacrity.
Yes.
That's where the problem lies, is the fact that we give them the openings for them to make full use of, and in the end, delay until we give up in the end and say, okay, you can stay. That is wrong. And nor should we even think about allowing people to stay here and granting them some sort of refuge simply because we can't get rid of them.
Right.
Because that is what underlies the whole process of reducing the backlog. We mustn't do that.
And also, how ridiculous the situation that we've seen today. One of the Channel migrants who stabbed a student because he wanted to be deported from Britain. He'd already been sent out of the country once. He came back on a dinghy, and they said to him in absolutely no uncertain terms, well, in order for you to be deported, you'll have to commit an act of violence. So he did, and stabbed somebody.
Yeah, well, it's like the old lags who really can't wait to be sent back in, because it's a way of life that they've gotten used to and they can't cope. So send me back inside, I'll commit another crime. And this is what this guy, he's probably wanted to go back to his own country for yonks, and we've ignored it. Had he actually wanted to stay here, we've said, oh, okay, no problem.
Yeah, absolutely right. Alp, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Alp Mehmet, chairman of Migration Watch there, with high hopes, I think you'd have to say, for this immigration policy, this new unveiled Stop the Boats policy from Rishi Sunak and Suella Braverman.